Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to the core ideas.
And today, we've got something pretty significant.
We really do. We're diving deep into the Graviton Pressure Theory, GPT. This framework comes from Sharif Ali-Rashada.
Yeah, and we're focusing on three specific parts, 20, 21, 22. They're all tightly linked.
And they propose a pretty radical rethink of gravity and magnetism, two forces we thought we kind of knew.
Exactly. It's a genuine paradigm shift we're talking about here. I mean, for ages, gravity's been about curved space-time, right? Abstract geometry.
Right. And magnetism is usually treated as its own separate force, doing its own thing.
GPT just throws that out. The mission here is to explore its core idea. Gravity isn't that. It's the coherent directional flow of these self-repulsive, massless particles. Gravitons.
Particles that are constantly pushing, not pulling, seeking stability.
Constantly pushing, exactly. Trying to reach a kind of thermodynamic balance.
So, okay, we're ditching passive attraction. We're moving to an active pressure system based on structure.
And that's the key thing. This flow idea immediately suggests, engineering potential.
Which is where it gets really interesting for you, the listener. We need to unpack three core concepts to see how this theory could actually be applied.
Right. First, graviton corridors. Second, lattice resonance.
And third, the really big one, the claim that magnetism is, well, just a specific kind of local gravity effect.
Okay, let's tackle that core idea first. If gravity isn't some mysterious attraction, what creates the pull we actually feel? What's going on?
It's all about pressure difference. These gravitons push outwards, always seeking stability. Matter isn't just sitting there being pulled, it's actually involved.
How so?
When matter exists, it kind of gets in the way. It creates what the theory calls structural impedance.
Ah, like resistance to the flow.
Exactly. So you get higher pressure pushing on the outside of an object than on the inside near another object. And things naturally get pushed towards that lower pressure zone.
So the directionality we feel as gravity is just things moving down that pressure gradient.
Precisely. Which immediately shifts the focus, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It becomes all about material science.
It really does. How something is built dictates how it interacts with this graviton flow.
Okay, so if we're dealing with flow, we need ways to channel it.
Yeah.
Efficiently.
Which brings us straight to the first big structural idea, graviton corridors.
Graviton corridors. These are described as like internal channels within materials, but low impedance channels.
Yeah, think less like plumbing pipes, maybe more like fiber optic cables, but for gravity. Pathways that can steer the pressure, guide the flow, and minimize the scattering, the resistance.
Okay, steering gravity. And these don't just happen by accident, I assume.
No, not at all. GPT says they need incredible precision. Three specific structural requirements have to be met.
How do they?
First, geometric alignment. The atoms have to be lined up perfectly. Coherent symmetry.
Right. Can't steer flow effectively through a jumbled mess, like a maze.
Exactly. But it's not just about static position. The structure can't be rigid and dead.
Ah, so there's a dynamic element.
Yes, that's the second requirement. Vibrational coherence. The whole lattice structure needs to oscillate harmonically, like hum together.
So if parts are vibrating out of sync, chaotically.
Then the flow gets disrupted, scattered immediately. The corridor breaks down.
Okay, like getting all the tiny gears in an old clock to tick in perfect time. Got it. And the third?
Spin symmetry. The spins of the components, like electrons, need to have a consistent orientation.
Why spin?
If the spins are all random, they act like little scattering points, roadblocks inside the potential corridor. Maximize impedance locally.
But if you get all three, the geometry, the vibration, the spin all lined up,
then the material becomes this incredibly efficient gravitational waveguide. It channels the pressure.
Okay, so we have the potential pathways, the corridors, defined by structure. But you mentioned matter as an active participant. How does it actively engage?
That's where the second major mechanism comes in, lattice resonance.
Resonance. This sounds like the really dynamic part.
It is. It's described as this sweet spot. It's when a material's own natural vibrations, or its electromagnetic modes, align perfectly with the rhythm of the surrounding graviton field.
Like tuning a radio. Finding the exact frequency of the graviton field.
That's a great analogy, yeah. You tune into the field station.
Okay, but that sounds almost too perfect.
Yeah.
If you just need a perfect crystal structure for this resonance, why don't we see, huge gravitational effects from things like big quartz crystals already. What's GPT saying we've missed?
Well, GPT argues we just weren't measuring the right thing or didn't have the framework to understand the interaction. This resonance, when achieved, allows materials to actively manipulate the local field gradients,
Manipulate them how?
potentially enabling things like, well, levitation, gravitational shielding, maybe even inertial dampening. Stuff right out of sci-fi.
Whoa, okay. And to measure this potential?
To quantify it, GPT proposes the Graviton Compatibility Index, or GCI.
GCI.
Right.
A scalar measure. It tells you how good a material is at sustaining that coherence and forming these active resonant corridors.
Exactly. It's the metric that supposedly separates the truly useful field interacting structures from stuff that's just, dense.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Look at diamond. It's incredibly rigid, very low entropy, perfect crystal lattice. GPT assigns it a GCI of 0.91, highly compatible. A fantastic gravitational conductor, in theory.
Okay, high score for diamond. What about something less ordered?
Like glass. It's solid, sure, but it's amorphous. It lacks that long-range order, that phase continuity.
So it struggles to maintain stable corridors.
Dramatically. Its GCI score plummets to something like 0.31. The material itself is just too internally noisy for coherent graviton flow.
So this structural divide is really fundamental. Crystalline structures, high order, they facilitate phase locking, low decoherence. They're like calm pathways for the flow.
Whereas amorphous materials, they just disrupt everything. Chaos, high impedance. You can't, as the source says, whisper stability through a chaotic geometry.
Right. Okay, that really sets the stage. Gravity is structured flow, channeled by coherent matter. Now, let's use that idea. Coherence, flow. Let's tackle the biggest claim here.
The unification thesis.
Yeah. Is magnetism really not separate from gravity? Is it just gravity in disguise?
That's the assertion, a huge leap. GPT says magnetism is a localized, kind of high-order effect of this gravimetric resonance. It's a harmony of phase, spin, and coherence that only happens in materials with very specific corridor-forming abilities.
So it's gravity expressing itself, but very locally, and only inside these highly structured, aligned materials.
Pretty much gravity's whisper, as the source puts it.
What's interesting is the sensory angle they bring up. When you play with strong magnets, you really don't feel an abstract pull.
No, you don't.
You feel pressure, a definite push, or a really firm resistance, which actually fits perfectly with this idea of directed pressure gradients, channeled graviton flow,
Right.
Much better than abstract pull.
That physical sensation is presented as key evidence. It feels like a pressure system because, in this model, it is a pressure system, not just Newtonian attraction.
So if it's flow, what are the actual structures inside magnetic materials doing the channeling?
Magnetic domains. In materials like iron, nickel, cobalt, GPT says these domains are fundamentally dense concentrations of aligned graviton corridors.
Okay, so in a regular unmagnetized piece of iron, you have these tiny corridor regions, the domains.
But they're all pointing randomly, complete mass.
So they cancel each other out. Destructive interference.
Exactly. The material stays gravitationally chaotic overall, no net effect.
So magnetization isn't about adding energy or charge in the usual sense. It's about reorganizing the structure.
It's described as pathway repatterning. You apply an external field, and it forces those corridors to line up, creating one big, unified, coherent graviton waveguide through the material.
A waveguide that actively shapes the flow.
Which makes the role of electron spin absolutely critical.
Right, you mentioned spin symmetry for corridors. How does it play into magnetism specifically?
Well, GPT redefines spin in a pretty radical way. It's not just angular momentum anymore. It's framed as a temporal vector.
Whoa, hang on. Temporal, as in related to time? How does spin relate to time here?
It supposedly governs how particles interface with the timing, the rhythm of the incoming graviton pulses.
Okay, unpack that. A temporal vector. Electron spin dictates how it syncs up with the graviton rhythm. That feels very different.
It implies the alignment isn't just spatial, it's also about timing. Temporal. If the spins are aligned, they form these temporal phase locks.
Phase locks.
Imagine the graviton field pulsing like a drum beat. If the electron spins are aligned, they lock onto that beat. They interact with the pulses at the right moments.
Reinforcing the coherent corridor, allowing smooth directional transmission without timing. Jitter.
Exactly. No timing scatter.
Yeah.
But if they're out of sync, the corridor effectively collapses. The timing gets messy.
Okay. Wow. That temporal alignment idea.
Yeah.
That could actually explain magnetic attraction and repulsion using just pressure and flow, couldn't it?
That's the claim. It elegantly resolves the paradox. Let's take attraction.
Okay. Two opposite poles coming together.
Their internal corridor structures, their flow patterns are configured, GPT says, to link up. They form a single, highly efficient, very low-resistance graviton corridor between them.
So resistance drops dramatically in the space between them.
Creating a big asymmetry in the surrounding ambient pressure field. There's lower pressure between them now.
And the higher ambient pressure outside just pushes them together to fill that low pressure zone.
Pushes them together to stabilize the system. That sudden snap you feel, that's the ambient pressure winning the push.
Okay, that makes a kind of intuitive sense. What about repulsion then? Identical poles.
Now their internal corridors are directing that highly self-repulsive graviton flux toward the same point in space, right at the interface. They collide head-on.
Like two hoses pointed at each other.
Sort of, yeah. Creating an extremely high pressure zone right between them, a pressure bulge, formed by constructive interference or conflict between the graviton vectors.
And that high pressure physically pushes them apart, the resistance you feel.
Exactly.
The pushback, this framework. It also gives a new perspective on the Curie point.
Yeah.
Right? Why heat kills magnetism.
Yes, and it's one of the most, I think, compelling examples. Classical physics says heat just jiggles the magnetic moments around randomly.
Right. Thermal agitation.
GPT reframes it. Heat is energy, yes, but it causes the atomic lattice to vibrate chaotically. It dismantles the precise coherence, the geometric alignment, the vibrational timing, the spin symmetry needed for the corridors to even exist.
So it's not just randomizing existing things, it's destroying the pathway itself.
Leading to what GPT calls structural forgetting.
Structural forgetting, I like that term.
It's evocative, isn't it? The magnetic field vanishes not because some energy is lost, but because the material structure literally forgets how to channel the graviton flow coherently.
Heat introduces too much noise, too much chaos. Spin disorder, vibrational timing goes out the window.
And the defined graviton corridors collapse. The material forgets its aligned geometry.
Okay, so if magnetism is basically controlled, coherent gravity flow, then mastering magnetism, it becomes a key to actually shaping the gravitational field itself.
Which moves us squarely into applications. Engineering. This is where the theory meets potential technology.
Right. Let's start with the big one. Propulsion.
This is maybe the most exciting bit. The framework talks about propulsion via corridor phase cycling.
Phase cycling. Okay, break that down. How would that work?
The idea is to use rapid temporal gating. You take a material that can form these corridors, and you switch it really fast between two states, a coherent state where it's essentially transparent to graviton's low impedance, and a decoherent state where it suddenly has high impedance. It blocks or scatters the flow.
Like an on-off switch for gravitational interaction.
Kind of, yeah. And if you cycle these states directionally, like making one side of your drive transparent, then opaque, transparent, opaque very quickly.
Create an imbalance.
A pressure difference.
A controlled asymmetric pressure differential, which, according to GPT, generates thrust, net force.
Without throwing mass out the back, like a rocket.
Exactly. Thrust without mass ejection, just by manipulating the interaction with the ambient graviton field.
That's staggering if true. Okay, what about defense? Protection. Graviton shielding. How do you shield from a flow?
You don't block it necessarily, you modulate it, redirect it.
Okay.
Shielding is achieved through field modulation. Two main methods are proposed. One is using fractal lattice structures to scatter the incoming gravitons, diffuse the pressure like light hitting a frosted glass.
Okay, scattering. What's the other method?
Using curved, layered lattices. These would be designed to smoothly redirect the graviton flow around a protected volume, like an aerodynamic fairing guides air around a plane.
And if you could do this, what would the effects be inside the shield? Well, obviously reduced weight, potentially, but also maybe inertial modulation, dampening the feeling of acceleration g-forces.
Because you're smoothing out the interaction with the field.
Possibly. And maybe even they suggest minor but measurable temporal variation, a slight difference in the rate of time inside the shielded zone.
Just because the flow characteristics, the rhythm of the field have been altered locally.
Wow. Yeah. Then there's another huge leap. Computation.
Computing with gravity. How?
The framework describes gravimetric logic. If gravity is about this phase-dependent flow, maybe you can encode information in phase-locked states.
Instead of ones and zeros with electricity.
Right. You'd need components. They suggest things like phase gates, which would act like transistors, controlling the coherence of the flow, switching it.
Okay. And for memory?
Coherent shells. Structures designed to lock in stable phase states, holding the information. like a gravitational memory cell.
And what would be the big advantage of gravimetric computing?
Radiation tolerance seems to be the main one highlighted.
Because it's based on physical structure and phase, not electrical charge.
Exactly. It should be inherently robust against electromagnetic interference, radiation damage. Computation built on essentially the structure of space-time itself, not just easily disrupted electrical signals.
That robustness could be huge for space or other harsh environments.
Definitely. And this idea of structure influencing the field extends right out to, well, architecture.
Architecture.
Like buildings.
Yeah. Field-aware architecture.
Wait, are you saying this theory suggests we could build a house that, like, interacts with the graviton field, maybe helps you heal or something? That seems like a massive jump.
It is a jump, but it follows the logic. If structure shapes flow, then maybe we can design structures, buildings, homes very precisely.
How precise? What would you need to do?
You'd have to align structural elements, choose materials carefully, all based on the local graviton flow patterns and the desired effect. Create geometries that are phase-locked to promote coherence and minimize entropy.
To create what? What's the goal? To create coherence zones. Areas optimized for, say, biological synchronization, maybe enhanced healing, maybe even neuroenhancement. The idea is that structural order can influence biological order via the graviton field.
Biological order. That connects right into the parallels they draw with living systems.
It does. Life isn't just seen as passively sitting in the field, it's hypothesized to be a resonant participant.
Resonant participant, meaning
that microstructures within us, the way proteins fold, the helical structure of DNA, even the way water molecules arrange themselves in your membranes, so-called structured water clusters.
These aren't random.
GPT suggests they might act as complex, active biological corridors, biocorridors. Life might have evolved to operate through and with this coherent graviton field, optimizing flow from metabolism, maybe information transfer.
So life itself uses these principles, perhaps unknowingly.
That's the speculation, which, takes us beyond just mechanics and engineering.
Right into philosophy, almost. The theory concludes that coherence isn't just structural, it's ethical. How does that work?
Well, if design choices, how you structure matter, determine stability and flow within this universal pressure system, then making things coherent, stable, non-chaotic, it becomes an act of care, of intention.
So design is recast as moral geometry, aligning with stability's intent, leading to a physics of intent.
That's the phrase used. It suggests that creating optimal structure, minimizing impedance and chaos, is inherently a good thing within the physics itself. The coherence you build into something reflects a kind of alignment with the universe's tendency towards stability.
Okay, that is a lot to take in. But the core shift, the takeaway, seems pretty clear.
Yeah. What's your summary?
Remove from thinking about forces as abstract math, like curvature or isolated phenomena, to a universe potentially governed by structured pressure, coherence, and flow.
A universe where matter's structure is paramount.
Where magnetism isn't some separate mystery. It's just gravity's localized whisper, happening inside materials that has gotten their structural act together.
That sums it up pretty well. And remember that final biological link. GPT hypothesizes consciousness itself might emerge as a kind of non-local gravimetric resonance pattern.
Meaning our thoughts, our consciousness, could interact with or even alter the internal graviton lattices within our own bodies.
Right.
The structures we already possess.
That's the implication. Which leads to a final, pretty provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Go on.
If engineering coherence in materials is maybe an act of moral geometry, of aligning with stability, what happens when we start viewing our own bodies, these incredibly complex structures, these ultimate gravitational instruments, through that same lens? As structures designed for stability's flow.
What potential might we unlock if we could consciously influence our own internal coherence? What latent capacity for field modulation might we actually possess?
Something to think about.